How did you realize that relationships were like a great way to be in business?
I learned it from my parents. I saw the way that they built relationships with people. And, I call Passyunk Main Street America.
See, that's the real accent.
It really is.
Wait, say that again for
Passyunk Avenue, East Passyunk. Main Street America, right?
Yeah, it is.
All little small business, independent businesses, your one-stop shop for whatever you want.
Your dry cleaning, your grocery, Blockbuster video, movie rentals.
Blockbuster.
Right?
Welcome to the podcast dedicated to real estate, insurance, and building your business. Join us as we take you along our own business building journeys with additional wisdom from our network of local and national experts. Welcome to Bricks and Risk. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Bricks and Risk. I'm Timmy Garrity.
And I'm Sean Mooney.
Supposed to say Shawnee.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, jeez. We have an awesome guest here today. We have a local guest. We're doing another in-person episode. We have Mike Giangiordano Jr. or the second. How you doing today, Mike?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Good, man.
Yeah,
you got my name right. Well, you know me long enough.
Do you know how for the hour before you got here, he was practicing into
I'm used to it by now. It's like my whole life.
You must have heard a lot of different ways.
Oh, Giangiordano, Giangiordano, a lot of different variations.
Love it. Mike is a co-owner of Century 21 Forrester in South Philadelphia. He's also a lifelong Philadelphian, born, raised, and still living in South Philly, Passyunk Square section. He runs a Century 21 office with his father, Mike Sr., which is located right on East Passyunk Ave. They also run their own property management company out of the office as well. Mike is also the founder of Rental Rater, a review site for apartments where past tenants can rate their landlords, properties, and addresses. All right, so you grew up with real estate in your blood. You know, your dad. Anyone else in your family besides your dad in real estate?
My grandfather had bought like a few properties.
Okay.
And a cousin and my uncle.
All in the same neighborhood too?
All in the same area, yeah.
Very cool. And you've been in the family business, ever since you were a kid. So what was it like growing up the son of a successful South Philly realtor?
Well, I could never get in trouble is what I would always say, because we would be out, I'd be with my friends and they would know my dad, what are you doing? You're sitting on the corner. What do you got? You can't do anything bad, because it's like, I know your dad, I know your mom. Oh, okay. Not that I was a bad kid, but it's like.
You always had eyes on you.
Yeah. Always had eyes. Always had eyes.
Nice.
But you know what, guys, thanks for having me too.
Yeah,
it's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be here. Love the show.
Thank you.
Watched a bunch of the episodes. It's
appreciate it, man.
Fun time. So really great to be here. But to your point, Tim, it was interesting. It was interesting that all the people that knew my dad knew what he did, because he was also involved in the community. So I'm kind of molding myself to do the same thing, because I'm a firm believer in where you live, where you work, you should be involved in it.
Yeah.
Because that's your home. It's the place where you have a business and you need to be involved in that community. So he was always involved in things. He started the East Passyunk Bid. He was one of the founders of the business district
was he?
there. Yeah.
Nice.
And then he was committee person, involved in politics. That's where I got my, kind of stint to do that too. But it was just an interesting thing. I mean, I say when I meet people, like, how long you been in the business? I say since I was a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Because really, I was a kid running around with him. I mean, it was, take your child to work day. I'd be with my dad.
Right.
And we'd be looking at properties or going on an appointment and meeting people. I was in the office, seeing how he worked, seeing how he interacted, and really learning that this business is a relationship business. And you need to forge those relationships, I believe, to be successful. And I think that's what made him successful.
Did you fall in love with it? Like watching your dad do this and going to see people and they know, people in the neighborhood know him and,
I did. I fell in love with it. And when I went to Drexel, I studied finance and econ. I did a short stint in investment banking.
Oh.
And I was, kind of like, maybe I'm going to do that. Maybe I'll go to law school. And then I said to myself, I have a business here. I know it. I had started working there when I turned 18 officially. And I was doing rentals. I was showing my dad's rentals, renting them for him, working a little bit with property management, learning about tenants, learning about kind of fielding maintenance, collecting rent, whatever. And I said to myself, well, why would I not take this opportunity to work with him and grow the business bigger and better than where he had it, which he did pretty well. But, you know, I want to take it to new heights.
And you saw the opportunity.
I saw the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what's interesting? So, you know, being in real estate doesn't require a degree. If anything, getting in residential, any kind of real estate in Pennsylvania is pretty easy.
Yeah.
Like the classes are cheap.
Too easy.
You can be done in a month and a half if you want to. You could take them out over 6 months, or you pass the test, you pay a fee, and bang, you're in real estate. So what's interesting is that, you know, while your dad was a success story, and again, your grandfather was buying things too, and you're watching this growing up, you probably realize you're like, I think my dad does pretty well. And then you go to Drexel, and they're not teaching anything like what you grew up with. And then your finance, your econ, and then totally you're getting really smart in the classroom. I'm sure you had internships. It's a co-op program. I'm sure you did co-ops. And you're getting a sense of what the real world is like these big corporations, or, you know, investment banking and all this stuff. So then it probably almost like dawns on you. You're like, look back on that. You're like, should I even be doing that? Because like you said, you're like, maybe I'll go to law school. Like maybe I'll take it up a notch from where I am at Drexel. But yet here you are. And the reason I'm saying all this is because I kind of wish there was more taught through the education system in general about real estate, because real estate is the #1 wealth builder in America year after year. And
the largest purchase arguably anybody will make in their lives.
Sure.
And we teach none of this in grade school, high school, college. Like, I mean, you could get a real estate degree at some schools, not all. And even if you do, they're not going to teach you what your dad taught you. So like walking around with your dad, I'm sure you're like walking to most things in your neighborhood because you lived in the neighborhood. Like, what was it? Were you just kind of like fascinated by people? Was it like the negotiation? Like, what kind of things did you like about watching your dad?
I think what I love about it was that relationship, that meeting different people, that solving different problems all the time, right? There's no thing that we've never not seen, you know, like there's always a new problem with a property, or something with the title, or something that needs to be resolved, or you're walking somebody through like the death of a loved one and you're selling the property for them. I mean, that is a very hard time for most people, and emotional, and you see the emotion. And I think, as you could tell, I like to talk to people. I like to engage with people. I am definitely like an outgoing personality, right? What's that?
People person?
Definitely an extrovert.
Extroverted.
And, you know, even when I was a kid, I think partly too is why I've gotten more into trying to buy stuff and start it. Like when I was 18, I bought my first property with my dad, and my sister.
You were 18?
Yeah, I was 18. Yeah.
Wow. Was it a rental, or did someone
bought a rental, and we kept it and eventually rehabbed it.
Wow.
And what I like too is seeing the product from beginning to end and kind of walking through that process. Like when I was a kid, even I would draw buildings, like huge buildings, and like model, and loved Legos and would play with that stuff. Loved building things. But I agree. I mean, universities don't teach those skills. They don't teach you anything about interest rates and the environment.
Right.
I mean, I learned it in my finance background, but it is usually like the real estate programs, because Drexel introduced one after I graduated. I would love to go teach there. So Drexel, hire me.
Drexel?
No, I'm still involved.
We're gonna make it
happen. But even their program, it's more skewed towards going to work for a big developer.
Yeah.
You know, and what if you just want to work at a brokerage, or even just have a full-time career and buy a property here or there on the side? There's really not much of that. And I think a lot of people would benefit from learning more about that.
Just having that exposure a little bit, right? Like if it was a semester class or something that they can.
And the knowledge.
Yeah. Because at some point, the vast majority are going to own real estate, right? At some point. So
they're going to buy something.
Yeah.
You know, and what I like seeing is like people that have full-time careers, but then they want to invest on the side.
Yep.
And they use, you know, some of what they make, they save it, and then they buy a property.
Yeah.
And kind of walking through, like, that's why I call us a one-stop shop. Like, you want to come just buy something and live in it? Great. One day, you know, when I talk to buyers, think of this as a long-term investment. Think of this as a rental property one day.
If you don't stay, think about that.
You can afford to keep it, and you want to keep it. Why wouldn't you keep it? You know, then that's where the property manager, you hire somebody like me to rent it, to manage it. And then, we kind of do everything in house. My dad's an appraiser too, doesn't do much anymore, but
Yeah.
we kind of could do a little bit of it all, which is cool too.
It differentiates you from a lot of the other real estate offices in the area that, you can hold their hand from the very beginning of that purchase. And if it is a rental, to have that relationship for years and years and years.
Yeah. And even like sellers. I mean, maybe at the time it's not the right time for them to sell. Maybe they keep it for a little bit.
Right.
I mean, I'll give you an example. Last week I had a client inherited a couple properties from her aunt. One of them, she said, I think I want to rehab it and sell it. She said, what do you think? And I walked through, well, here are the different scenarios that go through my mind. Maybe you sell it for X and just take the money and run.
Right. As is. Don't worry about the general contractor plans and 6 months of hell.
Maybe you rehab it and sell it.
Right.
Maybe you rehab it and turn it into a really nice rental.
Right.
And get $4,000 or $5,000 a month.
Right.
Because it's a really great location.
I say so $4 or $5,000 a
that
month.
Stuff I think they don't even
Passyunk,
teach in our classes that we have to take. I think that's so geared. Agents just want to sell.
Right.
And that may not always be the viable option for people.
Totally.
So you are educating those clients.
Yeah.
Which would be a perfect segue to Drexel, having you in as an adjunct.
Drexel University, if you're watching, this is your next professor right here. All right. So let's talk about, so your dad's running the brokerage. You're getting to learn the business. You buy your first investment property. You're 18 and you love what you're doing. Talk about you guys get into property management as well. We haven't really talked much about property management on the show, but I'd love to hear, one, how that came to be. And you're a younger guy. You're 30, 31?
30.
So you don't meet a lot of 30-year-olds in property management unless they're working for these big property management companies, like thousands of units. They're just like a corporate job, a cog in the machine. Talk about property management, why that made sense for you and your family.
Well, for us, we would have clients that would say, hey, look, I don't really want to manage this place. I don't want to deal with the tenant. I don't want to collect the rent. Will you do it? And it just became a natural part of, our business. And it was like, well, why not? It's reoccurring revenue for the company. We build these relationships, right? Eventually we get the listing to sell it. We re-rent it either on an annual basis, or if the tenant stays there 10 years, we rent it 10 years later, whatever. It just kind of made sense. I think part of how we got into it originally, because I'm going through a lot of cleaning out our office. We're going to do some renovations.
Nice.
And I'm finding old documents so our company was started by a guy, Mason Forrester, who was a real agent who had a brokerage on East Passyunk Avenue across the street from us. Years ago, there was a lot of like rent to own, and there was also a lot of like owner held financing.
Right. Oh yeah.
Before
like seller
there
financing,
was mortgages for the everyday person.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm finding records, I mean, from like the early 1900s, it's pretty incredible, of payment schedules on mortgages. So I think that was kind of the natural progression for the company to go into property management, because it was not that they're the same, but it was like, well, we're collecting the mortgage now. Well, why don't we just collect rents for people?
Got it.
So there was a lot of like seller held financing. Yeah.
So they were doing, you think they were running seller financing out of the office basically?
Yeah.
Like
Years ago, the old offices.
They had enough capital.
Or that person didn't want to sell and immediately collect the proceeds.
Yeah. Yep.
You would come to him and say, Mike, I'll buy the property from you for whatever.
Yeah.
I'll give you $5,000. You hold the paper.
Very cool. That's awesome. All right, here's a good question, because we like to get like boots on the ground. We like to give insight, and you've been living this your whole life. What's it like to run a property management company day to day? I know you're in the neighborhood. You can walk to most things. It's local. What's it like?
Every day's different.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's going to come at you. Somebody's going to move. Somebody has a repair request. Somebody, wants to go see a unit.
Yep. Noise complaint.
There's a noise complaint. I mean, we've dealt with a lot of different stuff over the years. It's challenging at times, but I'm a believer in if you set the pieces up from the very beginning, you'll be successful. Like if you show it and you don't overpromise, or you don't say X, Y, Z, you say, look, pay your rent. We maintain the property. We're not going to have any problems.
Right.
And we have good reviews for our property management in part because we're fast to respond. We don't take on properties that I've walked into properties and I've turned the people down because they said, if you're not going to maintain your place, I'm not going to rent it. Because how do you expect
your name's on it?
Yeah, my name's on it.
Yeah.
And how do you expect somebody to pay rent? Not that you shouldn't pay your rent, but if you don't maintain the property, you're not willing to do.
What's that? It's like a sign of things to come.
Your end of the bargain, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
So I'm very selective with it in the sense that I really only take properties with people that are going to either trust me to do the job that I have to do and trust that I'm going to put a good tenant, I'm going to screen them, I'm going to make sure they're qualified, I'm going to do the legwork. And then if there's something that comes up, they're going to trust me that whoever I work with is not going to gouge them, is not going to overcharge them. And, I'm going to take my fee and we're going to pay the people appropriately, and I've built relationships with contractors. So that's the other thing is like, if you have those pieces in place, it's also pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
And again, I have landlords that say, Mike, whatever has to be done, you just go and do it because we trust you.
Yeah.
You don't need to call me. You don't need to get approval. Just do it and don't even bother me.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's a sign of like a reflection of the work that we do, but yeah, it's challenging. But again, if you set it up for success,
processes, people
from the beginning, you're really going to not have a problem. I mean, during COVID, we really had virtually zero tenants that didn't pay their rent, even commercial tenants.
Wow.
We caught a lot of breaks with commercial tenants, but we were like, it was a two-edged sword, right? Well, you can't open. How can we expect you to pay rent?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like, well, we respect you enough to say we need to pay something because we're still occupying the space. And we didn't have any tenants that just stopped paying that I put in there. Correction. There were some that we inherited that I never screened.
Yeah.
And I'm also a firm believer in that. Like, I don't take usually a property on that already has a tenant there because I don't know.
Right.
Especially if I don't know you.
Yeah.
Right. If I know you, different story. But if I don't know you, I don't know. You could be having a problem with them and you're like, I'm just going to pass it off.
You're like, Tommy's at 123 Main Street. All right, Tommy's good.
Exactly.
I'll work with Tommy.
Exactly.
Definitely. Do you know what's funny? So we just did an episode recently about CRMs. It hasn't come out yet. And remember when we were talking and you were talking about real estate and you're like, yeah, but like real estate's like one and done. Like you rent to someone, like landlord, tenant, buyer, seller, doesn't matter which side you're on both sides in a transaction. It's like you're one and done. And like you were making the example of that based on the typical agent. And then you talked about insurance. And you're like, insurance, they never go away.
Never.
Because they're with us. Like we got to collect money.
Service
like
them.
They need
Billings.
renewals. Things change. They want to, change things on their policy. And that's property management. Like, property management. I'm sure you got a great property management system. What do you guys use?
Appfolio.
Fantastic system. And that's one.
My question was going to be, do you ever it's every day for you. It's 24/7 around the clock. Like, do you ever wish I need to escape or I need to get away or I need to do something different because your phone just must be ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, there's a lot coming through, but thankfully not a lot of emergencies. Like there's no 3 a.m. calls. There's nothing like that.
Yeah.
I mean, and then again, if you build that trust and relationship with the tenant, they'll know from the beginning, like there's a problem that's not an emergency. It can wait till the next day.
Yeah.
Mike will take care of it. His team will send somebody out, whoever's got to go out. But no, I'm not going out there to open doors for people. Like that's a no. Like they know.
You're like, sorry.
Like you get locked out, that's on you.
I know. I'm just
unless
you get a pillow for the sidewalk.
Not even from just the property manager. It's just like you're the real estate guy in town and you're the property manager. Like, I guess
and the local.
You're like a celebrity of sorts,
not
right?
Really.
I know, but like
no,
you're very well known, like in your immediate area. Some days it's probably really good to be recognized.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.
This is where Mooney and I. It's always glass half empty, glass half full. It's like, I know Mooney's always going to go.
I'm thinking of the day, like I just want to go get a cup of coffee and I'm walking down the street and, Debbie's over here yelling at me, you
told me to sleep on the stoop. You said you weren't going to unlock the door. You told me to sleep on the stoop.
I told you I could never get in trouble.
Yeah, well,
I said that. Yeah.
That's great.
So I can't do anything.
Mike's carte blanche in South Philly.
Awesome.
I just had driving up here. Wait, I'll read it to you. I had a review.
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
Somebody rented from us. We took it over. another management company.
Nice.
Thanks, Mike. I'll definitely recommend Forrester to anyone looking for a property manager. Things were so smooth once you took over.
Love
and that's
it.
the stuff that makes me happy.
Oh, that was our first
like
live
that's
review.
then I'm like, you know what? This is why I do what I do. Because I know that I'm good at what I do.
Well, especially in the property management space, there's a lot of, I don't want to say bad actors, but there's a lot
big
of
shoes to fill in that business.
There's a lot of people, I think, that take too much on too quickly.
Yeah.
And then they don't know how to control it.
Right.
And they don't know how to scale properly.
Well, they see like, oh, I can get 500 units, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome.
Dude, we did it. We were in a partnership for about 2 years, remember? I told you we did property management. And ultimately, the partnership just wasn't like a good fit. But while we were doing it, dude, like it was the same thing. It was like, oh, we can get to here. How many rentals have we done over the last like 10 years, 15 years? Like we got like 50 people to call, blah. And do you know what was really interesting? And this is like for the audience to like get a sense of like property management is not easy. Even if you have a captive audience, people already had their relationships. Yeah. Like someone who had a rental property, let's say I sold them a rental property 8 years ago. And they're like, I don't want to manage it. I would probably recommend a property manager. Talk to Bill, talk to Sal. This is like before we met. And then they get locked into that relationship. And they're like, they're great. And I remember calling a couple of people who were like, hey, we're in that space now. Would you like to consider us? They're like, I'm pretty happy.
I got
somebody. And then we already have
a guy.
Yeah, and we already have the relationship. So what are you gonna do? Say like, well, like you're not gonna sell it. You're gonna respect the relationship. Be like, I'm just so glad to hear you're happy. Anything changes, let us know.
Very rarely do we lose a management contract.
Yeah,
very rarely. I mean, it's either we sold the property, and then I've sold properties and then picked up the management back up.
Oh, from the new owner.
And I do that as I'll say to the other agent.
Like cutting the grass.
Before, I'll say, hey, by the way.
Buy a house and Timmy down the street.
He keeps your grass contract.
Yeah.
I'll say like to the agent, and I'll be respectful. Do you guys do property management? Oh, no, we don't. But you mind if I recommend myself? Yeah, no problem. I never had any agent that said no.
Yeah.
And I've gotten more from people. It's like they solely give you one and then it's another.
Oh, yeah.
So it's usually the sale or they just decide to manage it themselves. It's one property.
And they do it for a year. They're like, what the hell am I doing?
Then
I need Mikey.
Yeah.
Like, let's go.
Yeah.
All right. Here's another one. So one word you've used to describe yourself is driven. So why does that feel like a word that relates to you in, just you as a person as well as like being in business? Why do you use that word?
I think for me, it's like motivated, right? Driven
motivated,
not just be successful financially, but to take care of the people that are entrusting me with some of their largest purchases, their assets, their baby. I'll go back to the property management. We have a lot of people who like inherited the property, and there's an emotional, sentimental piece to that.
Yeah.
And navigating that with people and walking them through that to make sure that like, look, I understand it's in good hands. We're going to make sure there's good people that take care of it, and we're here to take care of you. So that drive really comes from, I guess, ultimately working with people, which is what I like to do. I like to work with people. I like to meet different people and see how people kind of react to you, see how they interact with you. I kind of find that fascinating too. I should have studied psychology partly.
Yeah, seriously.
You are a part-time psychologist of sorts.
That's true.
I am. You are in this business.
I would classify as all as like,
you walk a lot of people off the ledge.
Self-taught therapist a little bit. Yeah. In insurance too.
Oh, every day.
Is most of your business done in and around South Philly? Do you kind of branch out from the neighborhood, like where the relationship takes you? Jersey?
Yeah, wherever. We do South Jersey, the shore sometimes. Bulk is in South Philadelphia. Nice. And then we'll go to West Philly, Northern Liberties, Fishtown, Center City. We'll go wherever, really, Northeast Philly.
Is it more that you have your existing clients branching out, or you see it as just, new business in the door from different areas?
I think it's some partly new clients branching out, and then partly we get a lot of repeat and like referral-based business. So we get people that call and say, hey, so-and-so recommended you, I have a property here, and I'm not going to say no. I'll go wherever because I want to make sure, again, I have such a strong piece to, like, I become invested in the transaction. Again, it's not just money. It's like I'm invested in making sure that they're in good hands and taken care of.
What's the relationship? And you're him and I, we preach all day, every day as we built our businesses on relationships. It sounds like yours is completely a relationship business. And so you have a duty and an obligation to not only your existing clients, but if someone, refers business to you, there's an obligation there that you want to deliver.
Yeah, absolutely.
For those people.
Yeah. Because I don't want to then it reflect poorly on the person that sent them to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good segue into the next one. So one thing you shared with us is plant the seeds, watch them grow. That's very much more the farming approach, not necessarily like the hunting approach, like making cold calls every day, knocking on doors, postcards. Like you're trying to kill stuff every day so you can eat. Whereas planting seeds and going more the farming method is, it's going to take time. Like you don't just plant a seed and the next day you harvest the crop. That's not what it is.
Absolutely.
And you can be madly successful both ways. There is no right or wrong way, but being the relationship guy that you are, was that kind of taught to you like growing up? It's such a tight knit community in South Philly, if people are unfamiliar, and you're in like a special like little enclave of South Philly. I've told a lot of people that, to me, Passyunk Square, like East Passyunk, whatever you want to call it, it feels like a little like European town.
Yeah.
Like it's got the fountain, the singing fountain in the middle. Yeah. It's got the diagonal path with all these streets going like.
It's got a lot of history. It was a commercial corridor.
Yeah.
Do you know who insures the South Philly Sausage Fest?
I'm going to say someone besides you.
Mooney Insurance.
See?
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I like that. So now you got South Philly in your blood.
I got a little something.
You got a little link tattooed on your shoulder.
Yeah.
He's got a connection there.
I love it. So was that kind of taught to you through like your father, your grandfather, your family? Is that something like as you kind of grew up with your friends, you go to high school, you go to college, like how did you realize that relationships were like a great way to be in business?
I learned it from my parents. I saw the way that they built relationships with people. And, I call Passyunk Main Street America.
See, that's the real accent.
It really is.
Wait, say that again for
Passyunk Avenue, East Passyunk. Main Street America, right?
Yeah, it is.
All little small business, independent businesses, your one-stop shop for whatever you want.
Your dry cleaning, your grocery, Blockbuster video, movie rentals.
Blockbuster.
Right?
I love Blockbuster.
I'm coming into the next episode with a Blockbuster
cigar
t-shirt.
shop, right?
Twin shop. Yeah.
Where's your cigar shop?
10th and Tasker.
Okay.
I grew up right on that corner.
That is such an amazing street. And I know it was always like a rock solid neighborhood, I'm sure, when you were like growing up, but like it really came into its own, probably about 15, 20 years ago?
When the Avenue took off, when it really became like the restaurant row, famous, businesses started to come back. The Avenue was busy and popular in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And then I think there was a generational shift in America, which was, the parents of their kids. So my grandparents wanted their kids to go to college and move out to the burbs.
Don't run my business.
Don't run my business. So you saw that generational shift of, the seamstresses and the tailors and the shoe stores. They started to kind of closed down. So the late 80s, 90s, I don't ever say it went unpopular. It didn't. No, I'm sorry. It might have become unpopular. It might have lost that small business
vacancies
feel.
Stack up. People drive by. They're like, what's going on
here? But not
here?
like depressed or, disengaged entirely. It wasn't like a ghost town.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of areas of Philadelphia.
It was a transition in American culture. It was a transition culturally because you had a lot of people there in that time who either came from another country and started a new life here and maybe then started a business, and then they wanted their kids to have it better. So their kids went to college and they became doctors and lawyers or whatever. And then they didn't want their kids to continue these businesses.
Well, it's very familiar. Dolan, who grew up in East Falls.
Yeah.
East Falls, when he was growing up, he would have never have thought that like people would be coming back to his neighborhood to live.
To plant roots.
Yeah. So I imagine it's kind of similar as like
build it back up.
And now it's like this thriving, neighborhood that's got all of this demand to live there.
Centered around a commercial corridor where people have things to do and places to go. You know?
And we have that in Ambler a little bit. Like
Yep.
we have this, it's like a little main strip, and it's got all the little retail storefronts and the restaurants and the bars and all of
Downtown.
that. Yeah, and I think there's some demand to live there because of that. It's like a little tiny Passyunk.
Passyunk.
Yeah, straight, bro.
You know what
you're from this area.
years ago they used to say people from from Manayunk used to say they were from Roxborough.
Yes, exactly.
Because Manayunk was
they didn't
not
want to
what
say they
it
were
is
from
today.
Manayunk. And here we are today.
Here we are today. Like if you were in Manayunk, it was like, oh, I don't want anybody to know I'm from Manayunk.
I grew up.
I grew up in Roxborough. Yeah.
I was top of the hill.
And now it's like you want to say you're from Manayunk.
Right, that's the cool thing.
It flipped.
Dude, that's too funny. And what's so interesting about your neighborhood in East Passyunk, it's just so common throughout Philadelphia. It's like you have all these neighborhoods with like thriving neighborhood ecosystems. Now, some of them are still pretty rough and tumble. Like some of them, it's like, you can tell they're like slowly coming back. But then you got ones like Manayunk, you got your neighborhood, you got
East
spots
Falls.
in West Philly, East Falls, and the North. I mean, there's places everywhere in the city now. And even so, like Pennsylvania's kind of like that. Like Pennsylvania's a pretty densely populated state.
Yeah.
I was just in Colorado, visiting my mother-in-law. That's where my wife's from. And it's like the only game in town is really Denver and Colorado Springs, like in the whole state. Now, again, you got the mountain resorts and all this stuff, but they don't really have like the Lehigh Valley and like Pittsburgh and like Erie and Harrisburg and like all these areas. Chambersburg.
You got
Mexico,
just around
Pennsylvania.
Mexico, Pennsylvania.
To Sean's point, right? You got Ambler. You have Pottstown has a downtown.
Exactly.
Downingtown has a downtown. Doylestown has a downtown.
Phoenixville,
Phoenixville,
Malvern,
Westchester,
Cunchy.
Conshohocken. You got all of these little towns that have some history. And
it has the demand to
corridor,
go
has
there, right?
demand.
Like people want to live there. Then Colorado is like, well, it doesn't really matter where I live, right? Because I'm not going to be in this town or that town.
Yeah, you go to the main city. It's interesting.
My parents go out. There's an Omni resort in Bedford, Pennsylvania.
Dude, Bedford Springs?
There? Yeah.
It's like
They go there like 4 times a year. They love it. It's 6 hours away.
It's like literally that
You're
is
probably
like,
gonna see my dad there next time.
Dude, that is so funny.
They love it.
Honey, if you're listening, watching right now, they're talking about Bedford Springs. Because like literally, like when we want to go away for like 2 nights,
that's where they go.
That's where it's like 3.5 hours away.
Parents do the same thing.
Beautiful. Such a great resort. You basically just go there and chill and eat.
You go there, chill, and they have a downtown.
They do.
Little town, in the middle of Western Pennsylvania.
Sounds pretty cool.
Dude, that's so funny. Your parents go to Bedford Springs.
They love it there.
I'll see Mike. I'm like, yo, Mike. I was like, I know your son. Well, yeah, that would be.
And they become friends with the people there because they've been going so many years.
Yeah.
They become friends with like the restaurant. They know the owner.
So
they know the
cool.
people at the resort.
You probably have the same waiter, every time.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to tell Maria before this one comes out. Hey, everyone. This is Tim, your favorite Bricks and Risk co-host. But don't tell Sean. I hope you're enjoying this episode, and I'll get right back to it in a moment. Our audience grows through word of mouth, so if you would please take a moment of your time and give us a review on the platform you're on, that would be fantastic. Please also help spread the BNR word by sharing your favorite episode with a friend. We greatly appreciate your time and trust. Now, back to the show. All right, so let's talk about something else.
Yeah.
You're a very successful guy. Let's talk about your baby.
I like to think I am.
You're right. Let's talk about your baby. Not your actual kid, but
no kids.
But rental rater. And if you're in Philly, you probably say rental rater.
Rental rater.
Rental rater. So
sounds like you're rating.
Right. Rating. So you're already successful. It's like you got the family business, you're stepping in, you're growing it, you're doing the property management, you're investing in real estate. Like you're involved in your community, so you're carrying on that legacy that your parents had. So like, what made you get into like prop tech, as they call it, which is really real estate technology? I'm sure. What do you guys call it again? Real estate? You call it InsurTech?
InsurTech.
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 So we're trying to be trendy
Learn
here.
something new every day.
What made you like? Why? How did Rental Rater come to be? That's a good question.
It came to be when I was at Drexel. And like I said, I was starting out doing rentals, showing rentals, meeting tenants, meeting landlords. And I would always get asked this question: how's the place? How's the landlord? What's the neighborhood like? Now, as agents, you can't really say what the neighborhood's like because you could steer people.
Mm-hmm.
But this reoccurring theme started to go through my head of, is there a place where you can review properties?
It's like from the people.
From the people, like a Yelp.
Like a
but
Yelp.
for real estate.
Yeah, yeah. Very
for
cool.
rentals. So I started doing research, couldn't find anything really universal.
Yeah.
And then I started like sitting down, like really formulating this business, this idea, like, what would it look like? What would, how would you identify places? And then I got connected with another Drexel startup who was like a web marketing agency, web designer, whatever. And because I have a lot of like connections. I still have connections in the College of Business, LeBeau there.
Mm-hmm.
Drexel also has a school of entrepreneurship. So I talked to a lot of my business professors. They said, you should really go to the School of Entrepreneurship, closed school, and talk about this. And I went and met with the dean and the associate dean. They were like, this sounds really great. You got to do a business plan. You got to really formulate this. And by the way, we might have somebody that's here in the incubator space who would be a good fit to help you kind of bring this from your head
Very cool.
and a vision to reality. And that's where the idea was born. And it's a review site based on where you live. So if you lived at 1234 Main Street, you review the landlord, the property, the neighborhood.
Wow.
You go in, you write a review as a tenant. Landlords can claim their property. They could then respond. So if somebody writes you a really nice review, you could go, thank you, Sally. That was great.
Yeah.
We loved having you in unit 103, whatever.
Right.
And really, like it's a community-based kind of company or site too, because you're looking at what's the areas like. Is there a grocery store? Is there shopping? Is there, how far are you from the airport? What is it about this place that you love? Or what is it about that you hate?
Yeah.
Because you're going to have that too. They might, it's too noisy. The management company's slow to respond. There's trash all over, whatever it is. So again, kind of looking at the community too, building that and kind of bringing that in. Not just house the landlord, and not just house the property.
Well, I think it's very important because just like Yelp, right? So you're on Yelp, you want the inside track.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you go on Yelp?
I haven't been recently.
But don't you want the inside track?
I want the inside track. So, you want to know, like, what dish do I order?
Yeah.
When's the best night to go?
Yeah.
Do they have live music on Friday, right?
Yeah,
so
yes,
if you went to the website, you might not hit upon all of that behind the scenes information, but hearing it from someone who actually went to that restaurant on a Friday and they had a band or whatever, you get to gauge your experience on what theirs was.
Yeah.
Like online reviews.
So that's what I think the value is. Hey, if I'm going to go live here, I want to know, like, what's this like?
Yeah.
Who's living here? What's there to do around there? What are some of the amenities? Places to hang out. What are some of the cool features of this building? So I think it can lend a tremendous value from that angle as the person who actually did live here.
And you don't always get to meet the current tenant.
Correct.
You don't always get to see them.
Right.
I was showing places like 2 months ago, and it was like, go and show, go right in. I knock on the door. I open the door. The woman's still living in there. So, oh, I didn't know there was a showing. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry.
Thank God you're clothed.
Sheesh.
Yeah. And she's like, no, it's okay. You could come in. She's packing up. So I'm with the prospective tenant, and she's like, well, how do you like living here? She's like, do you want me to be honest? I hate it. And that just immediately, she's like, all right, I don't want to rent this place.
Well, what do you hate about it, right? So if it's an older person that didn't like this or didn't like the noise or didn't like whatever, well, that may be,
Well, this was like a 5th floor unit, and there was a deck on the 6th floor. She said you can hear everything from the deck.
Yep.
And no matter what time.
How would you know that?
How would you know that until you moved in there?
Yeah.
Unless you had Rental Rater.
Unless you had a review and you went on there.
And you knew that going into it.
True.
That's why I had one of these genius ideas.
The Munoz.
Was that
I'm excited to hear this.
Yeah.
You buy a house. It's kind of the same thing. You buy a house, but you have no idea what it's like.
Yeah.
You literally are
Seller's
going
disclosure
to make.
doesn't tell you much in Pennsylvania. Let's be honest.
You don't know, like, does the floor creak, or
Yes.
is there like a shuttle valve?
Yes.
Or the neighbor likes to cut his grass at 4:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
Well, you could report them to the township or the city if you do that.
But your biggest life decision hinges on like a real estate listing.
Yep.
Sean, it's like oh, sorry, go ahead.
So my idea was you live there for a month somehow, some way, so you get to know all the particulars about the house.
Write this one down. Live there for a month. Okay, keep going.
Can we make that happen? You guys are real estate guys.
I love it.
Think about it. You just
like a 30-day money back guarantee.
Yeah. You just put down.
Is that what we're doing here? We're slinging SC on TV stuff.
$1 million. Biggest purchase of your life, and you have no idea what you're getting into.
It's true, man.
You just threw me to pass for the alley-oop because I swear, I'm not even kidding. Yesterday I was with, we have somebody helping us with social media.
Yeah.
And we were doing that Demure trend. She had like.
What is that?
Yeah, whatever. But one of the things was, she's like, I want to shoot a video of you like going down the street saying like, look at me, I'm walking around the neighborhood and I want to live in before I put an offer in. Very cute of me, very mindful. Like, it's like you knew that. It's so funny. It's like you threw me the alley-oop to say that. Like, we were just talking about the same topic, and it's just, but there's not a lot of people that do that. And there's not a lot of people that will know that.
Yeah.
And if you're selling your house, just like, I guess the same thing. If you're a tenant and you really want to, let's say you want to get out of the lease because the 6th floor is the deck and you hear every noise from that deck and you're trying to get out of your lease. And your landlord says, fine, I'll let you out of your lease, but you have to find a new tenant.
Yeah.
You're not going to tell them that.
No.
You're not going to tell them that. And if you're selling your house.
Or you might omit that.
You may omit that is what I should say. Yes, thank you.
There's not really anything
you may
on
omit that.
There's nothing on the seller's disclosure that says you got to talk about noise or your neighbor cutting the grass.
No.
So yeah, I mean, again, it's, it's a fantastic idea. Don't get me wrong.
I think it's got legs.
It's almost like, well, it's not kind of like a Carfax. It really is. It's really more like, what is your quality of life like? The people making the noise on the upper floor, the neighbor cutting their grass. I once had a neighbor who liked to feed every cat in the neighborhood. So
that sounds fun.
And they don't go number 2 where they eat. They go to the property next door, which was mine. So that was interesting.
There's a property and they have chickens, right? So I remember when O'Neill sold his house, his neighbors had chickens, or he did too, but for him, it didn't bother him.
He gave them their chickens?
Probably. But literally, imagine buying a house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
you went to walk through the house at like 3:00 in the afternoon.
Totally
you're like,
this
is the best house.
Right. At 6 a.m.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So you buy the house settlement the next morning, you wake up to that, your first night there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it has legs.
I only bring it up to circle back to rental rate.
Yeah.
Because you really are getting the inside scoop on what it's like.
And the inside scoop is valuable to people who want to live in those places. Yeah. All right, so here's a question. So you come up with this idea. You're at Drexel. They got a good ecosystem, so you're getting some help. It's been a couple of years. Like, what do you want to do with it? Like, what's the plan?
So we launched
organic
organic. The hardest part of this business is the reviews, and they're the value. Until we get enough reviews where it has legs and it's like validated, that's the hardest thing. I've been working on it for 6 years.
Wow, yeah.
6 years, and we're just starting. Like recently, we've gotten reviews in Chicago and Las Vegas, in where's Ithaca College in New York.
Yeah.
I don't think anything New York City, but building, like, again, this is going to be a site that you have to build relationships with those potential tenants, with those landlords, to kind of sell them on, here's why you should use a service. And if you run a really great building, you should have no problem with this, because you're like, hey, but now guaranteed you're not going to please everyone. That's impossible.
But I think people know that going in.
Most people,
right?
It's absolutely.
You're never going to, if you run any business, you're not going to have 100% 5-star review.
The problem is, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then, because you're always going to get one person that you're never going to please them.
Yep.
You're never going to make them happy.
Yep. Exactly.
And that's what I've been working on, trying to build it. But then I got distracted with running the business.
You got a few other things going on.
And,
let's be honest.
And really, like, this is my brainchild, baby. Like, this is something that I long-term want to really grow and build.
Love it.
Like, I still have, I kid you not, I sketched out the design of this site
No way.
on a piece of paper, every page, and then brought it to the web developer and said,
dude,
this
if you
is
can
what.
get that to us, we can actually put the images on the episode.
I want to find them. I save them because I want them to be like, one day if this takes off, I'm going to hang them like in a frame
I love
in my
it.
office. And be
We
like,
just did
this is where Rental Rater was born on a piece of paper.
Like Jeff Bezos in that picture where he's in this
the garage?
little office,
Yeah.
garage.
Office, yeah.
Here was my scribbling.
Yeah. We just did an
That's how it should
episode on brand, and we talked about branding and logo and all that. And we literally
We talked about how different our approaches were. He had like 30 pages of
and
ideas.
scribbles, like you were just saying.
Yeah.
Like I was coming up with this idea of what like our brand was going to look like, and I just kind of like, went through all these iterations of page after page after page of scribble.
I think that's what they say when you're most creative, when you put it from here to paper.
Yeah,
Right? I could be wrong with that, but
Yeah.
sounds right.
it sounds right.
All right. So I'm going to shift a little bit as we do. I'm going to bust out the Ryan Garrity question. So what's up, Ryan, my brother?
Hey, Ryan.
And it's really what has been your biggest struggle? And you had said daily changes and challenges obviously has been a struggle. We talked about it in property management. This
Yeah.
happens in real estate every day. I'm sure it applies to Rental Rater. So why did that stick out to you as a struggle?
Because every day is different. It's
Yeah.
truly different. You don't know what's going to get thrown at you. You don't know what deal is going to have some problem come up. What's on the title
Mhm.
that the seller didn't know about. The buyer went out and made a big purchase. Now they can't qualify. Every
Oh,
day is
that's a
truly
nightmare.
different. And you don't know what's going to hit you. You don't know. And it's hard to schedule it sometimes. It's hard to plan around it. One day you might have a dead week. The next week, somebody
Flooded.
from 5 years ago may call you. I want
Yeah.
to buy another property. Like that's kind of like how it's set up, because we're so relationship based, because we're so referral based, because we're so repeat based. You just don't know. But partly I like that.
Yeah.
I like
Turned into a
being
positive.
under the pressure of timelines and things that have to get done and deadlines. I like that personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Challenges. Like a challenge comes your way.
And
How do I solve this
the
problem?
real estate market right now, with the new changes, with the new
Yeah.
law and the new lawsuit, navigating that. Now, I haven't really seen anything personally yet,
Right.
but we're going to see that coming over the next few months. And it's just another hurdle. It's just something you got to get over. And if you're strong enough, you have the mental and the physical capacity to be okay with that,
Mhm.
then you'll be successful. Otherwise, find another hobby or career.
So it's interesting. So remember we did the NAR realtor
Oh yeah.
episode, and Sean was kind of like firing questions at me and asking, okay, what is this? What's that? Again, he's bought and sold real estate, but you and I are living and breathing it every day, and
Yeah.
vice versa for insurance. And I've had a couple deals. I'm not sure if I've told you about this, or at least not talked about it on the show. I've had 2 deals in the last few months where the seller was offering less than what was agreed upon in my buyer agency contract with my buyer clients. This is before everything hit, which I think was like August 17th.
Yeah, I think that was the deadline.
Yeah, that was the day
13th,
that
something like
everything
that.
changed. And it was interesting because it hadn't even like happened yet, but yet I still had those buyer agency contracts in
Yeah.
place. And I had to go to my buyer client. I said, look, they're only going to pay me X, which means you got to fill in the gap so that I get paid Y, because we have this contract in writing. And you know what happened? They were like, no problem. Because they saw the value.
Yeah. you have
So
to see
again,
the
it's
value.
like, just like you're saying, like, as much as it is a struggle, changes, challenges, like, who the hell likes change? Most people don't on face value. Like, there's a change out there and people immediately like retreat a little bit.
Shudder.
Yeah.
And they're just like,
Yeah.
I'm not used to that. I don't know that. How's that going to affect my bottom line? How's that
Yeah.
going to affect my family? Like, whatever it is. And I think your attitude of saying, as much as that's a struggle, like turning a negative into a positive is what makes you good at what you do.
Mhm.
Because just like in Sean's industry and insurance, just in real estate, every single day something comes up. You might have sold a house 6 months ago, and you were the listing agent, and the buyer agent calls you 6 months later, be like, we just saw this or heard about this. Like, what's the deal with that? And you know what? Like, the deal's done. It's closed. Both
Yeah.
people have gotten paid. People have moved in, and some people will just ghost you. They'll just be like, I'm not going to return that.
Yeah.
I don't have to return that call. Come after me. People like us will be like, well, what happened? Like, tell me what happened. They're like, oh, this is
Let me
what
hear you
happened.
out.
Maybe you have to go to the seller's disclosure and say, I'm just letting you know, it was put right here that, you know, the floor in the basement gets water from time to time. And or you did an inspection. It's on the inspection report too. So as much as I understand that it's not ideal, like you had a seller's disclosure and you inspected the property and you took a credit, something, price reduction, seller assist, repairs.
Or you signed off on it.
Or you
agreed
signed
to
off
take
on it.
I mean, you know.
And as much as you don't want to say like, sorry, not my problem, you're just saying, look, I understand it's emotional. Like people are emotionally charged right now. Both of you, the person who lives there and the agent who's calling us, but you're just trying to help. You're just like, look, it's here. And hey, if you need someone for basement stuff, I got someone.
I got a guy.
Do you
I got a guy.
remember? Do you remember D'Amico's house?
Which one? The one in Flowertown?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you remember that story about?
Oh, in the back.
Yeah.
I do remember.
So he bought the house, and the chimney was all messed up.
Yep.
Okay.
So rather than like fixing the chimney and then selling it,
Yeah, they hit it.
this person was like, "Oh, I'll just put up some drywall and just hide this." And it was the house settled and everything. And I guess when he was doing some work or doing some cleaning up some things, he found this chimney that was a total disaster. And they came out as, this thing's got to go. This
Yeah, because you
real
heard
problem.
about this too from an insurance perspective.
Yeah. And
Was it functioning? Was it in
No.
use? No.
No, it was like a dead chimney.
A dead chimney,
But it
yeah.
had some I don't know, it just like had some damage, let's say, because of like maybe it wasn't in good shape and that was starting to affect like, the quality of the home, like moisture, things like that.
And they reached out to him and said, "Hey, you didn't disclose that this was a problem." And he's like, "Eat it, I don't care," and the guy moved to like California.
Yeah.
And when they were in the attic, they found like receipts of the drywall and the paint,
Covering it up.
which then they could have demonstrated to the guy that, yo, you just bought this stuff and just did this work to like cover it up. And they wound up sending him a check, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, without getting like too much into the details, that's a great example of someone just being like, not my problem.
Yeah.
And then look what happened.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think with any of this stuff, again, it's like the biggest struggle. It's funny because Ryan and you think a lot alike about things.
Ryan and I are very.
I think Mikey G and I are a little bit more glass half full.
Yeah.
But it's so funny. It's great having both perspectives so that you can just look at things, with an open mind. But obviously, like having something like that happen to you and handling it properly, it's like, again, it's like, how much better would that conversation have went, or how much less would the amount have been if the person just owned up to it and said, you know what, I forgot to do that for whatever reason. How can we resolve this issue, rather than saying you bought it, peace, see you later, and try and come after me.
Yeah.
And it's like, at the end of the day, karma's a real thing. So
Yeah, and it goes back to the old phrase of the devil's in the details.
yeah.
If you're not detail oriented, if your agent is not detail oriented, if they're not reviewing things, looking at things. I mean, one thing I would say for us is, because I learned from my dad, he's been in it 40 plus years, because I've been around properties, I can walk into a house and be like, that hot water tank's old. It's probably going to go soon.
Yep.
The heater's old. There's some moisture in the ceiling. Looks like there's a roof problem.
Yeah.
They're not to bash on agent, but they're agents to walk in that don't know any of that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's true.
Don't know, to look for those things.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I guess for me, from an investor also mindset, I'm looking at those things too, partly because they're important to protect your
Well, it's
investment.
also important too, is like nowadays, and I don't know what the exact market is where you're at, but a lot of these houses will go and it's, the demand is there and can't do a home inspection, right? Because that person who's offering isn't going to do the inspection. And so to have someone like you that knows these houses and knows what to look for, it's just an added benefit to be working with a seasoned real estate expert that knows what to look for.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not necessarily being an inspector, but knows things
No.
more than the average.
But
person,
you don't need to be an inspector for you to point out like, hey, this hot water here, this is something you're going to have to contend with in the first year or two.
And by the way, let me say that I would never, as an agent, recommend ever not getting an inspection.
No.
And if it just makes you more competitive, just go on, you'll find another house.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen is if you don't do the inspection, yeah, I mean, if you're an investor, if you don't care, different
Right.
story. But if you're
Or
a
you got a
first-time
really
buyer,
good relationship that can come
Sean,
in.
to your point, like that inspection kind of gives you some insight into, this is going to be a problem in the future, or the floors creak or whatever.
like
I
Carfax.
use that. It's like a Carfax.
Yeah.
And it's going to give you some value and insight into the little minutiae, I guess, is what I want to say, like of this house, like
Yep.
the insight that not all sellers will give you sometimes, and is it worth it really? Is it worth it to skip it? Because what's going to happen is you have a problem, who are you going to think of and blame? Your agent.
Totally.
Immediately.
Yep.
You could do a phenomenal job. They might say, well, you recommend it
Right.
not doing an inspection, so
Perception
falls
is
back on you.
reality.
All right. We've been having such a good conversation that I have to
This has been great.
have to get toward the end. But you gave us a really great quote that I thought was awesome, and it was, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." So why'd you choose that quote? I think it's great.
It's a great quote. Overplayed, but no, it is a great quote. Because I'm a believer in like just throw a bunch of stuff against the wall, see what sticks.
Yeah. Fail.
Try things. If it's really meant to be, I'm a gut instinct person.
Yep.
I go with my gut on a lot of decisions. that I make.
Likewise.
If it feels right, I'm doing it. If it doesn't feel right, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
If I walk into a house with a buyer and I'm like, this is a really nice house, you should buy this place.
Yeah. Like
My gut's telling me you should buy it.
Yeah, like someone's like, again, we've talked about this before. It's like a good real estate agent. Again, you're doing one side of the transaction most of the time, which means you're an advisor. What do you think?
Yeah.
And if you can shoot from your gut and say, I think, we know each other. Maybe we already have a pre-existing relationship. Maybe maybe we didn't know each other, but we already looked at 20 homes.
Yeah.
We know each other. This is a good spot. Now, again, they might go home and think it over and sleep on it and be like, nah, I want to keep looking. And that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay too.
But I think...
Or the reverse.
Yeah.
Then they might say, I might say, this is really not the property you should buy.
Yes.
I don't really like this house.
100%.
We really, really love it. Fine.
Being the person who speaks up always has the best interest of the client in mind.
I've had people get mad at me because they're like, every house they would take me to, I'd be like, I hate this house.
Right.
I don't like this house. And they'd be like, do you like any house? I'm like, I'm telling you for your benefit.
Right.
It's your decision at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I'm giving you my honest advice.
Yeah. And you know them.
Yeah.
So again, you're only going to speak up because you're like, hey, I'm just looking out for your best. You want to know what I think? This is what I think.
I'm invested in it.
Yes.
Well,
I'm
you're also
invested in it.
speaking like you and him and I, as we speak from the position of, if you were me, right? Like if I was you and I was buying this house or looking at this house, or I wanted to buy, this is what I would do.
Yeah.
Which creates a ton of value for the client.
And you build that trust.
Yep.
And again, you're getting compensated for the value you bring to the table.
100%.
And if Tim, to your point about the buyers that had to cover the difference, if you're bringing value, they're not going to have a problem with that.
Right.
You're bringing zero value, that's when they're going to have a problem.
And this is like, again, like not to go back into the NAR thing, this is where the people who are confident in what they do, what they bring to the table, feel good about it.
Yeah.
Because they're like, look, if we have to sign a contract and talk about this up front, and 6 months ago, we didn't really talk about it until you were making an offer, that's okay. Because that same level of service is there. That same level of value is there. And your job is to deliver on what you do best, which is be a real estate expert, be customer service expert, customer service forward, and get them to where they're going with as little pain as possible for as little money as possible, is what I like to say.
This is kind of cliche too, but when you walk into a Ferrari dealership and you want to buy a Ferrari, you don't haggle over the price, right?
Right.
So if you respect yourself enough to know that your value is there, you don't need to haggle over what you're worth.
Exactly.
Because you know your value. And if they don't like that, then they can move on and they can find somebody else. But unfortunately, with this big lawsuit, it's the bad actors who ruin it for all the good actors. And it's the bad eggs that spoil the whole soup. That is, no, I don't know. Whatever. That spoil the omelet.
Mike, Tim's going to kill me for asking this.
Yeah.
But I have to. You're in the hot seat, right? You're here.
Yeah.
I can't let you get out of here.
Wait, can I take a guess what you're going to ask me?
Go ahead.
My favorite restaurant in Philadelphia? All right, go ahead. No.
Yes.
Really? No, no. Seriously.
Oh, I'm dead serious. So I want to drill down here.
Yeah.
And I know there's a spot you always go to. I know there's that spot, right? So
Which spot is that? You know?
no, I'm asking. I'm the one asking the question.
And he's assuming.
So I am assuming actually. So there's a spot you always go to, right? There's that spot. What's that spot? And then I want like the other like down low that people don't know about. Great spots.
That is a good question. Why would I kill you for that one? That's good stuff.
Because we're totally at the end, and this is you're the stickler.
In South Philly or in the city? Just in South Philly.
No,
so south of South Street.
Yes.
This is the boundaries that I consider.
Cool.
South of South Street. Okay. The Saloon is a long time favorite.
That is a good spot.
Yeah. 7th and Fitzwater, very good. I like Ambrosia, which is at 24th and Locust. Another good spot. Dante and Luigi's.
I know that one.
Is a good spot.
I've only been there like 100 times.
At 10th and Catherine. Yeah. I haven't been there in a while. I got to go there.
They, they sing the opera in between on a Saturday night.
Oh, you're thinking of Victor Cafe?
No.
They sing opera there?
Yeah.
Victor, they do sing.
The Victor, they sing. I didn't know they might sing at Dante and Luigi's.
I took my dad there because it was like.
But Dante and Luigi's is a classic.
Yeah.
On the Avenue, I like Labor too. Very good Italian food. Noir's good. I like their food too. Again, solid choices. I don't know. There's probably none.
What's the undercover spot where you're like, this is why we brought you
the
in?
Membership only?
No, just like
only locals would know.
Yeah.
Well, the Polizzi is good, but that's become popularized too.
You need a membership.
Yeah, you need a membership. But that the food really is excellent.
Is it really good?
Service is good. Drinks are good.
Do you know anybody that can get us in there?
Yeah.
I can get you in whenever you want.
We can.
The other one, I'd say the Bomb Bomb's good down at 10th and Wolf. Yeah.
Did you see that? Like,
it's for sale.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awful. I hope someone keeps it that way.
I like Townsend on the Avenue.
All right, and
the
then,
Dutch.
Ready?
The Dutch is good.
Ralph's, 1 to 10.
Ralph's is a 6.
Come on.
6.
That's
a 6.
That's like asking Pat's and Geno's, man.
Yeah, that's like a 6.
You're from Philly.
If you really want to go to 9th Street, I would go to Villa de Roma. I like the Villa. The Villa is so good. I have a professor from college who loves the Villa. And like when he's in town, he'll text me if I'm around. I'll go meet him. But great food. Love that they have that fried asparagus and the egg yolk.
Oh, nice.
It's like a heart attack. You're gonna butter and egg and fried asparagus, delicious. And the Villa salad's good. And Victor Cafe is very good too. I like the Victor.
Ate a Victor.
I like the singing.
It was awesome.
All right.
The Victor's awesome.
All right. I just had to get it in.
Am I good now?
There's so many spots. Bing Bing was great. They closed.
Oh, yeah. Am I good now, Mr. Loosey Goosey?
So your best 2 spots to buy cigars.
All right, so Mike, here's what we're gonna do.
Twin Shop's great. I just went to Harry's. Are you a cigar smoker?
No.
You a cigar smoker? No.
No.
There's
Harry's?
a place at 3rd and Church in Old City called Harry's.
Yeah.
First time I was there ever. My cousin told me about it. I went in there on Sunday. Great selection. They have a lounge upstairs. You could sit, smoke.
Have you ever been to Capelli Brothers on 13th Street?
Yes. Capelli Brothers is a good too.
Very good.
He knows that, dude.
And the Ashton's
That's
good.
my brother.
The Ashton's good. The Holtz on Walnut Street. That's always a good spot.
Awesome.
Capelli's is my favorite.
Well, let's do this. So for the listeners and watchers out there, why don't you tell people where they can learn more about you and what you got going on?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
Awesome.
Mikey G1016.
Love it.
I forgot it's my nickname. I go by Mikey G.
Mikey G.
Mikey G. And website c21forrester.com. Also Rental Rater, RENTALRATER.com. Check it out. And leave a review. If you lived in a great place or you didn't live in a great place, leave a review and we'll review it and read it. And you'll help your next potential tenant that moves into the apartment that you vacated.
Love it.
Very cool.
But yeah, LinkedIn, feel free to connect. My phone number's all over the internet. You're going to find us. You can text me anytime or call me. I don't care.
Mikey G, honor, man.
Appreciate
Thank you for giving us some of your time.
It was an honor to be here. Thank you.
Very cool.
Really
I had
appreciate
fun.
it.
This was great. Really
Awesome.
good. Yeah.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
And thank you for tuning in again to another episode of Bricks and Risk. See you soon. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Bricks and Risk. Our goal is that you walk away with 1 or 2 valuable nuggets, and we greatly appreciate you sharing your time with us today. You can find all BNR episodes on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your podcast content. Until next time, keep learning and keep growing.